Markets Now is brought to you by Durastack Trait Technology, the latest innovation from Syngenta. Available for the 2027 season, Durastack Technology features 3 powerful modes of action to outsmart, outmaneuver, and outmatch corn rootworms every move.
And welcome to Markets Now. I'm Michelle Rook with Brad Kooima of Kooima Varilek. Well, we had kind of I'll call it a sloppy open on Monday and grain and livestock futures trade, but just about everything is higher as we move through the morning, and the one exception would be the wheat market. But Brad, let's start off talking about cattle and some of the things that are driving that market. First of all, we had a pretty positive cattle on feed report, and let's talk about that first, and then we'll talk about the JBS plant.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on, Michelle. Seemed like there was an awful lot in play on Friday, huh? At least that's how I felt. Between Greeley, the report. By the way, we got a little news about tariffs. Again.
Tariffs, yes.
Yeah, a little trouble with the stock market, yada yada. So anyway, let's start with the easy part, right? Cattle on feed report was a little bit friendly based on the placement number. The other 2 categories, very neutral. So that's a relief, right? Again, remember, this is the second report now that is as compared to when the border had been closed. We're that far into it now, over a year. So you're for instance, so the Texas placement number, excuse me, coming in at 93%. That's 93% of a very small number. The total 98. Again, you get it, right? We're placing against something that was very small back then. Now, the thing that is a little bit different and consistent with what it's been is that the 2 northern states, Nebraska, on feed at 103%. They are easily the number 1 state now for cattle on feed. Iowa at 100% on feed. The one thing about good old Iowa here, I happen to notice our marketing figure was 115%, which is, I'm really glad to see that.
Wow.
Yeah, because I'm a little worried that these people are there's some that are intentionally feeding these cattle. I get it, right? Cheap feed, high priced replacement feeder cattle, high break evens, and really, really nice weather all lends toward having some bigger cattle. So we're going to keep an eye on that very carefully. But we get through the report. I didn't see any great nuance. That Texas placement number is still 80% of the 5-year average, to get a little more perspective even in how that works. So, we got through that. Now let's move on to the gorilla in the closet, right?
Yeah, the gorilla in the closet. JBS plant in Greeley, Colorado did not strike on Friday. The workers did not strike, but we're not out of the woods yet, are we?
To my now, and I don't know. I'd love to be a fly on the wall. We got through that first set of meetings there on Friday with, they're making steps, but again, this could be posturing. I mean, they've set up sign-up sheets, so this is where you sign up if you want to get benefits if we go on strike. So it would seem like there's some prep on the labor's part, but again, that can be so much posturing, of course. They're killing today. I don't know that there's another meeting scheduled. These negotiations have been going on for more than 8 months. So we'll see. Let's hope that they strike a deal and we can get on down the road. Any kind of lengthy stoppage there would be very problematic. That's a very big plant, JBS's biggest one, or one of their biggest ones at 5,400. So hopefully we can put this matter to rest by the time we talk next week, but I got a hunch we won't. I think this is going to be an ongoing issue.
For sure. The other thing we should talk about, cash trade on Friday was higher than the previous week, but you call it a little underwhelming.
A week ago at this time, I was real confident we were going to have 250 up and down the road, or at least, a little more of it. So I shouldn't say that I'm disappointed. Basically, the North, we ended up with bids at 247, and that would have been 1 to 2 higher than the week prior. So that's not so bad. And 247 is still a huge price. Pardon me, the South, particularly Western Nebraska, did trade some cattle at 249 late Friday. For them, that was actually $1 higher. So I'd call the cash market still good, but maybe a little bit underneath expectations. And maybe that's my fault. Maybe I was over my skis here thinking we were going to get a lot of 250, but we'll see what happens this week.
Yeah. What are you thinking about this week then?
Pardon me. we carried a lot of cattle this week, so from last week to this week, and yet we still don't have big numbers of cattle. If we can keep Greeley out of the news, I'm going to say steady better. I do think that people are, after galloping higher for 3 straight weeks, and then last week's trade was kind of like, grudgingly higher. A packer that was trying to play a little more hardball. Kill cuts are still very real. I don't know. I'm going to say steady, firm, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm under the market this week, and I hope it's a little better than that.
Gotcha. You mentioned the tariff situation. Supreme Court ruled the IEEPA tariffs were illegal. The president put new tariffs in place up to 15% here under the Trade Act of 1974. So is the market handling this quite well, or do you think there's some uncertainty here that the cattle market is fearful of, or any of the markets perhaps?
It's a great question. How tariffs directly impact cattle is a little, it's a little more foggy than you would say it is for wheat, for instance. Okay, grains, something that we depend on exports for. But I would say this, you use the word uncertainty, and I'm going to go there first of all, because uncertainty, in my experience, is bearish cattle, and uncertainty in this regard, I think, comes from so the Supreme Court won't let this sort of tariff, but we can figure out a way to do a 10 or now a 15% tariff, which basically, in some people's opinion, and mine included, would be like a tax on our consumer here of whatever we're importing. Then is going to cost us more, right? That gets passed on, and so then the some of the economists. Friday, the stock market wasn't crazy about it. Today, it's not great either. So you start to develop that stuff in the marketplace, and we don't need any extra baggage, because that uncertainty factor seems like it always leans on the bear side of the cattle market. Otherwise, we do some export business. I'd love to see us get China back in the top 3 or 4 of who we export beef to. But the bottom line is we don't have enough cattle to go around for the U.S. right now, basically, right? So, we still export some, of course, especially the high price cuts, but we're in a little different spot here, given the shortage of cattle that we've got.
Yeah. And to that point, I thought it was interesting that the president did not include Australia. They're exempted from these tariffs in terms of beef coming into the U.S. And that's on purpose, isn't it?
I would say it's intentional. At least we're not hearing the narrative of beef's too high, which I'm super sick of. I wonder if there isn't just a little bit of shift in the narrative from Secretary Rollins, and I can't put words in her mouth. But she did mention the fact that, we do have science here that with there are products that would treat the cattle that to get rid of the risk of screwworm, and something I've been saying for like 6 months now. So we'll see once if that issue is less scientific and more political, in my opinion, and if indeed they wanted to try to make a splash. Something like that would still be a potential out there too. So we'll see once. I don't know what I've gone a complete real circle on this whole Mexican thing. I thought we'd have information in January, and then they acted like it's going to never happen. And then about the time you expect that, now it starts to feel like maybe we're closer again.
Yeah, and she's supposed to be, I think, in Texas on Friday, and so there's maybe a little bit of a fear. I don't want to alarm anybody about it, but just something to keep your eye on, that maybe there could be some sort of an announcement, because it's going to happen when you and I least expect it, I'm sure. So exactly,
but yeah. And I don't want to freak anybody out either.
I don't either. I don't want to start getting the rumor mill going so the market goes down either. The hog market up, I think, now for a 5th day. Are we going to keep going here? Because cash trade is actually pretty strong, but it looks like the funds actually started to bail out of some of their longs here.
Yeah, that's been an interesting. We broke hard, and the funds hardly budged. Of a pretty good sized long position. At an interesting spot here right now. You're right. This is the 5th day up off the lows. This is 38% retracement, almost to the tick while we're sitting here. I got the chart up above me here. Weights are big. Cash was crappy on Friday, down a couple bucks. Product sloppy. It's so much hogs. Every day that slaughter is so big. We got to have perfect demand, and I'm not sure we do. I think domestic demand is really quite good. Global demand, not so much. And there, the tariffs talk maybe gets to be something to be worried about too. I don't know. there's a couple of spots in the charts right here that I think are kind of critical resistance. My inclination would be to think maybe we would fail from here. Hope I'm wrong for the producer's sake, but I don't think we're in a great spot fundamentally on the hogs here at all, just because of the big supply.
Okay. Yeah. Like I said, cash trade's been holding together, which has been surprising with the big numbers. And following up on the funds, Commitment of Traders report showed that they had exited about 17,000 contracts of their long, but still long about 116,000. That's still pretty long, isn't it?
That's still a pretty big position. 100%. I agree with you.
Okay. What about the grains? Like you said, tariff situation. Are we concerned at all about retaliation, or what is the market trading right now, do you think, in the grains?
I got to make one smart aleck comment, so the tariffs was when he put them on, that was bearish. Then we take them off, or the Supreme Court says that you can't, and that's bearish too. I'm just kidding. I get it.
Well, we're worried that China is going to back out of maybe some of their extra purchases because we don't have leverage against them. Don't you think that's part of it?
Yes, it is part of it. I was just being kind of a smart aleck here, thinking that you can't hardly win for losing, whether we do tariff or we don't tariff. But yeah, it's that uncertainty, the fear of retaliation. First of all, I mean, China is not necessarily known for their integrity in terms of whether they do what they say they're going to do, on these trade affairs. So I am very suspect that they'll actually follow through with what the promises are, but we'll see. You're going to need them to buy some beans. Otherwise, this 80-90 cent rally we had based on that will probably come off. You're going to, I think the next move here is this tariff thing is going to, the market's going to just have to absorb it and get used to. This is the playing field we're on right now. This is the stuff that we're going to have to deal with, and probably for the next 2.5 years, right? And I think the next thing, though, typically now is we start to forget about last year's crop, how big it was, how many acres it supposedly was, and blah, blah, blah. And we'll start thinking about, okay, well, what are we going to do next year? And you get that, with that ag forum, then you'll get that with the planning intentions report here in a few weeks. Mm-hmm. And we'll start to talk about, hey, it's really dry in Illinois and things like that, right? So I'm anxious for the market to move forward to that, because I think that would allow us the best chance to rally. Otherwise, the corn is stuck here with bad fundamentals, big over carry out, and I'm glad we're going sideways. Frankly, I think that's a win given the fundamentals that the market has. Let's hope that we can get into some weather worry or something like that these guys can get some opportunity to get some pricing done. Soybeans
this morning seem to be catching a bid from bean oil being up sharply, and we're still working in hopes about biofuels in there too, aren't we? We haven't talked about that at all.
No, we haven't. And I think that's really the story there, the renewable fuel initiative here, whether or not I would say that likelihood, and other people I talk to feel good about that whole prospect, as I think that the feeling is that Washington indeed does need to throw a bone here to the row crop people, and that would certainly be a good one. So hopefully that's the new contract highs today on the bean oil while we're visiting. Yep. So that helps for sure.
Yeah, and they've been hitting new contract highs for the last several days. So that is 100%. Part of this rally in beans here this morning. All right, thanks so much, Brad. Brad Kooima with Kooima Varilek. That is Markets Now.
With corn rootworm costing farmers up to $1 billion a year, you need the right strategy. Introducing Durastack Trait Technology, featuring 3 powerful modes of action to strike corn rootworm at full force, outsmart, outmaneuver, and outmatch their every move with the industry's first triple BT protein stack built for corn rootworm control. Take back your yield potential. Make your move at Durastack.com. Available for the 2027 season.